The outdoor home security system is almost entirely dependent on cameras, and when you set up an outdoor security system, you're usually tasked with a pretty significant undertaking. You have to pre-choose the right camera placements, buy the right cameras for the situation, and then often you will have to run power cables. The fact is, this can be an expensive and time-consuming job, and so a $50 battery-powered outdoor camera can be a real game changer. The Wyze Outdoor Camera is the eventuality of the popularity of the V2, and honestly, I have loved my V2 since the very first day I got any of these cameras into my home. And the honest truth is, as soon as I got the Wyze Outdoor Camera, I loved that too in a lot of ways. But then I also found a number of ways that I started to really hate it. And my first example comes when I go and try and use the mount. And this mount is really flexible. It's fantastic. It looks great, and I'm really excited at the ease at which I'm going to be able to mount this camera. It has that magnetic base, and if I really want, I can go ahead and use the 1/4-inch screw-in tripod mount for it as well. So I have these great options for mounting it. But then as I mount it actually to my home, I realized that I had to plan a little bit better here because the mount is not quite as flexible and the angles are a little hard to work with. So I actually had to plan a little more than I thought, and that is something I don't like. So then I take it all out of the box, and I'm really excited to just get this thing out because not only does this look like a Death Star, the base station actually looks like a walker here, and so we're full-on Star Wars people. And that base station is actually really exciting and a piece that I love the idea of because it has a micro SD card slot on it, so now I have access to two. It's on the outdoor camera as well, and I can get two local recordings of anything I catch. So then I go to set up the base station and I realize I have to 100% hardwire that device in, and that's going to be a problem for a lot of you. Now, for me personally, that's not such a big deal, but if I think about going and getting more than 4 of these, it might become a bit of a planning ordeal because only 4 of these cameras can go on each base station. So if you can handle that extra networking thing, well then you might actually find something you really love because the setup for this camera becomes absolutely dirt simple, stupid simple. Anyone's gonna get this thing because you plug in the base station and then the camera pairs to it. But then I realize I've got this low battery situation and I've got to charge it, and this is when I run into a couple of other issues. So I go and I try to start the charging process, and I got to get that power port open, and the waterproofing is fantastic, but I can't get the thing open. It's a real pain. And I start to think about using a tool which is instantly going to wreck it. So I wish the waterproofing wasn't so good in this case, and I actually wish the waterproofing wasn't so good in another case because it actually ruins the two-way communication in a lot of ways on this camera. And unfortunately, I think this makes it unusable in any sort of noisy situation to communicate with people.
Hello, Automators. This is the C1C.
Hello, Automators. This is the Smart Things Cam.
Hello, Automators. This is the Outdoor Cam.
Hello, Automators. This is the Wyze V2.
So then I start the charging process, and I love the fact that I can actually take the 2-amp cable that they gave me and I don't have to connect it to the base station. I can, but I don't have to do that, and that's a really great option because then I can think about charging it with a longer cable and just leaving it outdoors for an afternoon charging. And that large battery is actually a really useful thing because 4 or 5 days later I was checking it, and honestly, it's still at 100%, which is pretty amazing. And then I start to walk through the settings and I find the cool down option, which allows me to reduce from 5 minutes to 1 minute so I can trigger these recordings sooner, which I absolutely love. And then I find the local recording options. I absolutely love that because I have those double backup options. And then I get to the detection settings and suddenly I have an entirely different system than I've ever expected from a Wyze cam, or actually any camera. See, you end up with a 2/3 of the screen box. You can't really change it, and you have these different dimensions for detection settings than you ever had before. And maybe they're going to work a lot better, but I'm not necessarily really stoked about the fact that I had to again replan how I was putting these cameras up. Now, the great news is that I instantly find person detection is available, and that's great. And the fact is, what is the biggest issue with this rears its ugly head immediately, because I've got motion detection and only 12-second recordings. And while I get the engineering constraints that Wyze ran into here, it becomes a real issue for using this as a security camera, because there's really no way to get around this 12-second recording issue, and that's it. So then I kind of have to step back, and I have to do this in order to really balance myself, because Wyze has actually never said this is a security camera. They've actually never said that with the V2s either. So what am I going to use this thing for? I can't really two-way communicate through it. Any sort of noise is going to stop that from happening, and I'm only going to catch 12-second events. What am I going to do with it? And then I go back and I go, well, I still got to put it anywhere I wanted, and I'm going to have this great view of the front porch. So I come back inside my home and I go, okay, well, it instantly connected to Amazon's voice assistant. Let's bring it up there on the smart display. But I have a massive delay in terms of actually seeing what's on the screen, and it's larger than the V2s. And then on top of that, I go and I try Google, and that doesn't work at all anymore. And speaking of those V2s, we need to compare them a little bit in terms of the visuals here. This does look better to me, and I like that. Instantly, it looks sharper to me, and when I compare it to other cameras that are more expensive, it's keeping close. It's not quite at the level of some of those other wired cameras, the outdoor cameras that are up there in terms of pricing, but it is definitely beating the V2 in a couple of situations. And I would say just a little bit sharper at night. It's got the extra IRs, and so it's a lot better that way, and especially for the outdoor situation. And so I end up kind of hearkening back to the V2s, which can be used in a lot of unique and different situations. We can solve those power options a lot of different ways, and that's why I produced the video that is up on screen, so you can see how to get more out of these V2 cameras. Otherwise, guys, thanks for watching, and of course, don't hate, automate.